everyone, it's me, the AvatarFanatic, and today we will be discussing about Azula and her painful progression in Avatar The Last Airbender. We will really see how her life slowly started falling apart, and how she tragically couldn't recover or forgive herself in the end. If you guys can hit the like and sub button so I can continue making more content for you guys, that would be greatly appreciated. Anyways, let's get on with this video. So, Azula started as the younger child in her family, and she's named after her grandfather, Fire Lord Azulon, of course. Zuko, he was the older child by I think a couple years, but there wasn't a massive age difference, but there was a massive difference in their bending ability, which is the topic I'm about to go on to here. She was a firebending prodigy, and her dad, Ozai, found something in her with firebending that wasn't in Zuko, which drew Ozai into giving Azula much attention. She was a firebending prodigy, of course, as I mentioned, and she had mastered 14 more firebending skills than Zuko, although she was younger. And this was pretty young into her life. Like, she was, like, not old at all, and she mastered 14 more firebending skills. She was so obsessed with really being perfect because, you know, she had the trademark blue fire, which shows a characteristic of perfection and being prodigal. This plays a key role in her downfall later, when she realizes she isn't perfect and she can't reach perfection. But it was this, along with other skills, that made Ozai favor Azula over Zuko. Ozai quickly made Azula his favorite, and that was the beginning of the tragedy for her. From an extremely young age, the lines between right and wrong were so blurred for her that she didn't even know the difference between them. She had many occurrences where she would burn things for no reason and have no remorse for anything. And at least to my feeling, in what you could see throughout the series, Ozai kind of orchestrated this type of like lack of remorse in her. She soon realized that she couldn't get. She soon realized that she could get what she wants using fear against people, such as Ty Lee, May, Long Fang when she took over the Dai Li, and many more people. Azula even translated fear to her best friends, and she put fear into them, such as when she was asking Ty Lee to join her on the mission. She kind of insisted and kept insisting until she would actually join, even though she wanted Ty Lee wanted to do stuff on her own, but Azula kind of dragged her along a little too much and kind of scared Ty Lee into helping her. Ozai had kind of molded the monster that was Azula, and even Ursa had seen something wrong with Azula at this point, as these occurrences became more and more common until Azula became resentful of her mother and her treatment towards Zuko. She didn't feel like she got the same affection, so sometimes she would lash out and burn things like flowers. It's unfortunate because the time where Ursa disappeared when she gave Ozai the potion to, poison Azulon. She kissed Azula. If Azula knew more about, more about that, maybe she would have thought about it differently. As when she went into Zuko, when she went to Zuko's room, she woke up Zuko. He was conscious. He was completely conscious. While Azula, she didn't wake her up. So I think she thought that she disappeared without saying her a goodbye. But she knew that something happened with Zuko and her mother when she was saying goodbye to him. And that made her kind of resentful. And I think that really carried a long way in the series later on. So when Ozai saw the fire in Azula, she would burn things like flowers. Her eyes would light up when something bad happened to Zuko. Stuff like that. Ozai really embraced that position, saying Azula was born lucky, and Zuko was lucky to be born. Azula from then really was manipulated into trying to impress her father. She was trying to please him by any means necessary, although he didn't really care for her. She didn't realize that though, so she got manipulated only for her power. And keep in mind, Azula, she's feared by pretty much everyone, but the only person she actually fears herself is her father, Ozai. So keep that in mind. If Zuko was stronger, for instance, Zuko would have been the favorite and not Azula. Uh, trying to trying to impress Ozai was kind of a trap that Zuko thankfully got out of. Although, when he was trying to capture the Avatar and all this, he was trying to do it for his honor that his father had revoked. Therefore, he wanted his father to give him his honor back. So he was just trying to impress his father. Um, but as time went by and Zuko went more with Iroh on the missions, he realized that Iroh actually treated him better as a father than his own father. Correct? Unfortunately, Azula didn't get out of that trap, and she kept being quite submissive to her father's wishes, as he was the only person that she kind of feared, which is how she picked up her technique of instilling fear in people, such as the people I mentioned, Longfang, Ty Lee, Mei, a lot of people, really a lot of people. Um, she would go into the prison when Ty Lee and Mei turned on her. She was like, arrest him, and she's like immobile, and the people still did that to Mei and Ty Lee. Now I don't know if they feared Ozai coming for their necks, or they feared Azula, but I suspect it's a little bit of both. I suspect that they did fear Azula. Um, at Ember Island, this is where we get into a phase where we actually see some of Azula's good side. Um, and she acknowledged she was a monster at the Ember Island. I think she was by a campfire at the time. Um, but was really hurt when her mother called her that. And you could kind of see like a little bit of a pause of sadness when her mother called her that. And it really showed that Azula might not have been as far gone as people thought. Because she took a huge moment of sadness. Her eyes kind of started glistening, like lighting up. Because, not of anger, but of like sadness, almost like holding back tears in a way. Um, and it reminds me of Zuko when he left Iroh to go off alone. He went to that village. People ambushed him. He saved the little kid. Um, but he later reunited with Iroh, right? And it showed that it showed that Zuko valued Iroh's presence. And it's much like Azula distancing herself from her mother, but still acknowledging she cared about what her mother taught her, or taught her and thought of her. And I'm sure that if she felt that she was getting better treatment, she would have come back to her mother. Unfortunately, her mother disappeared and she didn't have the opportunity to kind of do that. And it put her down a really bad path and just a spiral. This brings me to the next and probably the most tragic part, to be honest. When Azula's life really, really starts falling apart. She gets betrayed by Mei and Ty Lee, as I mentioned. She gets really vulnerable at this point. Um, she's in outrage because she feels like she can't trust anybody. When she gets betrayed by her best friends from childhood, she feels like her life is like really really bad, and the only person she can trust at this point is Ozai. In outrage, though, she tries to kill Zuko, and unsuccessfully, of course, but the real biggest downfall of her mental state was her realization that her father didn't love her either. Which means, in her mind, no one did, and her obsession of being like her father had no purpose because he really didn't value her and he used her as a pawn. At that point, she was like, I can trust no one. No one actually loves me. Uh, her mother didn't treat her right in her mind. Zuko didn't like her. No one liked her. So she really um, and also when Ozai was going for bossing Say, I believe, or no, Ozai was doing something like huge, uh, and he didn't bring Azula along, and she got really sad at that. He felt like he was using her as a pawn, um, and the day of the coronation that she had, right, for I think Fire Lord, I think she was gonna be a like interim Fire Lord or like the ruler of this. I think of the Fire Nation, that specific place, the capital, right? Um, I think I think her psyche really suffered from that, and like her psyche was in tatters at that point. She was seeing hallucinations in the mirror of her mother, and Ursa was saying that she loved Azula, and Azula was so broken, all the emotions like coursing through her. Um, her hair became a mess. I think she cut her hair. She threw like her brush at the mirror, and like she bursted out crying, which makes me think she wasn't as far gone again as people thought. She cared about something. She cared about what her mother thought of her. Uh, she wanted her mother to love her, and I think she could tell that her mother, like, at least she could tell that from her mind, her mother didn't really love her, and that she wanted resentment. And so when in the mirror she came up, she was like, no, and she went in like a little bit of a almost like an episode, like a manic episode almost. Um, and that had her judgment so like fogged, um, not just from her and like her distancing from her mother, but mostly her father. And only something like extensive time with her mother, at least in my opinion, could probably even repair something as severe as this case. Although in the comics they extend on it and it doesn't go well for Ursa. But let's move on. Katara and Zuko later came to challenge her at the coronation, and obviously she obliged. The fight commenced, of course, and Zuko, clear as day, like immediately, as soon as she came out, she could tell that there was something wrong with Azula. Now that thing was she was mentally unstable, and they have their fight, their Agni Kai, and Zuko ends up getting the upper hand. He's overpowering her in the fight. But Azula, knowing that Zuko can read direct lightning, she shoots the lightning at Katara because she changed her mind because she was just in a rage. But then she remembered last second that Zuko can redirect light, so she shoots at Katara. Zuko gets in the way, of course, and then it's Katara versus Azula at that point. And even with Sozin's comet, Azula was so unstable and just so maniacal to the point where she actually lost to Katara during Sozin's comet. Recognize that's Sozin's comet, where firebenders are meant to be the most powerful, unstoppable, and Katara even overpowered her. And when she gets beaten by Katara, she of course gets chained up with like um like I think it's handcuffs or something like that. It's something like a handcuff. She gets handcuffed to like a metal bar by like a sewer. That's at least what I think it is. But it's in like a coliseum type area. Anyway, um, Azula, like her mental state makes her lose decisively, and she bursts out crying, realizing that all she's done. She realized that she deserves to be kind of chained up, and in my opinion, at least, it's one of the most tragic moments in the history of any show, if not the most. I mean, it's really really bad, and it just that's where all the tragedy pours out right before the coronation, where she cries in the mirror, and right after, where she just gets you know in tears, and it's really like gutting. You want to see every character in a show that you love do well, but unfortunately, Azula's story. I mean, it hasn't ended in the comics, but it ended in ATLA like that. And yeah, so if you guys enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It's free, of course. Comment if you guys would like to see a season 4 of ATLA to expand on Azula. I know a lot of this has been talked about, and I believe the creators have said that they don't really plan on that. But tell me if you guys think that it would be cool, or a comic really showing her with some sort of redemption arc, like a season or a comic showing her having a redemption arc in her journey. And tell me if you guys would like to see that. Anyways, again, subscribe, and it's me, the Avatar Fanatic, out.